Hey everyone, Lisa Salvatore here to talk about the beginning of June up until the full moon in Sagittarius that takes place on June 14th. It's been a minute since I've done a video. I have been tending to my own garden, so to speak, over the last couple of weeks, so I really haven't had much extra in me. So for those of you that reached out, thank you. That was really sweet of you, and I'm good, all good. I just needed to get some things done, and the video stuff just wasn't happening. I wasn't in the right space for that. So let's talk about how crazy the rest of the month of May was, at least, energetically, astrologically. Of course, we all experience it differently, but things are ramped up, right? And even though June's astrology is more calm, there is still a lot going on, and there are definitely going to be moments throughout the month of June that are going to feel supercharged. And again, dependent upon your own birth chart, this is going to be enhanced or it's going to be lessened, okay? So that's why I always say it's important to at least understand the basic planets in your chart, and the transits that are happening right now to you, because it just gives you direction and explanation as to what you may or may not be experiencing under these energies. And then also, of course, let's not forget the collective level, because that's just a whole nother realm to this equation. The last couple of weeks have been jam-packed. They have been intense, okay? We are still coming off of the energy of the eclipses. We are still very much under that energy. It doesn't just go just once the eclipse is over. Like I said many, many times in all of my other videos, this is like a chapter, not even, it's a page in the chapter of a story that's going to unfold over the next 16 months or so. So, don't get too complacent. Likewise, don't get too nervous, right? It is what it is right now. There's a lot going on for everybody, and it's different for everybody. But one thing is certain, the last couple of weeks have been wild. So we had the new moon solar eclipse back in April 30th, and that was a new moon in Taurus. And then we had the lunar eclipse full moon in Scorpio that took place on May the 16th. And then we closed out the month of May with a new moon in Gemini. And that new moon in Gemini was significant because, one, it was not an eclipse, but even further than that, not only was it not an eclipse, but it was the first lunation that we have had in Gemini that has not been an eclipse, okay? Because the North and South nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius before they entered Taurus and Scorpio in January. So the last 18 months of eclipse energy was under the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, which means that this Gemini new moon that we just had on May 30th was the first one that is not an eclipse, okay? And it carried with it some nice positive energy. And with that, we could breathe. But now, again, Mercury was retrograde. Mercury just stationed direct as I'm recording this video on June 5th. I'm recording this, and Mercury stationed direct on June 3rd. And my intention was to get a video out before June 1st. That just was not happening for me personally. So here I am, it's June 5th, and Mercury is now direct. But we are not out of the woods yet, because Mercury is still in its shadow period until June 19th, I believe. And I'll explain what that means. But Mercury is now direct technically, but we are still under the shadow period of Mercury retrograde. So now when Mercury stationed direct on June 3rd, on June 4th, yesterday, Saturn stationed retrograde. The thing about Saturn retrograde is that it's not the same as like when the inner planets station retrograde, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. With Saturn, it's a little different. It's a 6 or 7 month time span each and every year, along with Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. They all station retrograde every year and for a decent span of time. A lot of us will have these planets retrograde in our natal chart because it's not that uncommon. It's not as uncommon or as intense as when the inner planets station retrograde, because that's far more infrequent, right? And they're much more personal. They're personal planets, so they affect us more personally. With Saturn retrograde, it does still affect us, make no mistake. Saturn's all about control and structure and the containers that we live by and live in and live under, and rules and regulations and hard work and discipline and all of those things that require us to get serious and do our work. And so when Saturn stations retrograde, we take a step back and we are able to see from a higher perspective what still needs to be revised, what do we still need to work on and work through personally. And that again is different for everybody. But so Saturn was stationing retrograde the same time Mercury was stationing direct, and Mercury stationed direct in Taurus, Saturn stationing retrograde in Aquarius. And so these two energies are at odds with each other by a square aspect. So the square aspect is friction, it's tension, it's very karmic by nature, and Saturn is the planet of karma. He is the lord of karma, he is the keeper of time. He asks us to go back and retrace our steps even if we don't want to. We cannot help it because we will be stopped, we will be restricted, we will be shown ways in which we just can't move forward anymore. And that is when you have to go inward and say, all right, what am I not seeing? What is the big picture? It's also a time with Saturn retrograde where we are righting wrongs and wronging rights. So again, it's very karmic by nature. So you don't really have to do anything because Saturn is going to do it for us. Saturn is going to reveal to us by way of karmic lessons, people, situations that need to be revised, need to be reworked. And the purpose of that is, again, not to block us, not to stop us, but to bring us towards freedom and soul evolution. And we can only do that by doing our soul work. And a lot of times that is what these retrogrades show us, where we're blocked, where we're tripped up, where we're not fully in our light, okay? Or where we still need to grow, or where we need to take a step back. Okay, so Saturn is retrograde from June 4th until October 23rd. And the thing about Saturn's retrograde is that we're still dealing with Uranus in Taurus, and all of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, we were under the Saturn-Uranus square energy. Saturn is all about restriction and discipline and hard work and showing us where we can't keep going. And Uranus is about freedom and revelation and moving us forward and doing things a different way. And there's a shock value element to Uranus. And so, yes, these two have been separating. And I've mentioned this before, the fixed placements, the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, have really been getting slammed by the Saturn-Uranus energy, okay? Not just by the sun. Any of your planets or points in those signs. So even if you're a Sagittarius sun and a Leo moon, you've been feeling it emotionally because you have a Leo moon, okay? So anyway, the fixed energies have been really feeling the Saturn-Uranus the strongest. Everybody has, make no mistake, especially collectively. Think freedom and restriction. We've all been experiencing this, but the fixed signs and placements have definitely been getting hit with this more. Now, as we move throughout the rest of the year and we get into October, Saturn and Uranus are going to have another direct hit. And I will come back and do more videos about that, but I just want to mention it's not over. It's not done. And, you know, again, it's just showing us blind spots, showing us where we still need to do some work or where we can't just move forward just yet. Not quite yet. It's not the right time. Again, keyword for Saturn is time. And Uranus is like, I don't care. I just want to do what I want to do. And, you know, so sometimes Uranus wins and sometimes Saturn wins. And so again, there's just this push-pull dynamic that is still very present. And so it's wise to move with caution and take a step back and think everything through, really think everything through before forging ahead. You almost won't have a choice while Saturn's retrograde. Now, good ways to work with the Saturn retrograde is to think about it as laying down foundations for your future, for our future, laying down foundations. You're laying down the bricks, right? And yes, it's going to be hard work, and no, it's not going to be overnight, but at the end of it, you should have a decent structure to abide by, to live under, to live within. Now, as I mentioned, Mercury is now direct to start off the month of June as of the 3rd, but there's still a little bit of a foggy feeling to it. Some of the confusion and the brain fog should have lifted by now, but there is still some of that Mercury fog that we are under because Mercury is going to be in its shadow period until June 19th. So we'll still be feeling some of that Mercury retrograde stagnation, and there could still be some of those communication mishaps, travel, technology glitches that we experience while Mercury is retrograde, especially because we're dealing with Gemini energy, and Mercury rules Gemini, and Gemini is an air sign. It's all about the intellect and communication and the mind. Now, Mercury is also going to enter Gemini, officially re-enter Gemini on June 13th. So when Mercury gets to 4 degrees of Gemini, which is on June 19th, that is when we clear that shadow period, okay? Because Mercury actually stationed retrograde at 4 degrees of Gemini and went back to 26 degrees of Taurus. In other words, Mercury stationed direct at 26 degrees of Taurus. And so when Mercury moves forward now and gets to 4 degrees of Gemini, that's the degree that Mercury stationed retrograde. So we're now clearing that shadow period as of June 19th. So I hope that clarifies it. But anyway, we will be out of the shadow, officially out of Mercury retrograde shenanigans by June 19th. So again, just move cautiously, right? Just be mindful. That's a key word for Mercury, the planet of the mind. Be more mindful and just recognize that there is still some potential for that feeling of stagnation and fogginess and maybe even like physical exhaustion, depending upon, where your Mercury falls in your chart. How does Mercury retrograde, or how did this one specifically affect you, right? You can go back and check your chart and check your transits to see how that worked out for you. Okay, a few more things before we get to the new moon. June 11th. First of all, Venus right now is in the sign of Taurus. It's in the sign of her rulership. Venus loves to be in the sign of Taurus. Venus rules Taurus. And, Venus is the planet that rules over love and connection and beauty and pleasure and finances, right? And so when she's in Taurus, she really can express herself the best because she feels sweet and kind and gentle, and just all the Venusian things seem to go smoothly for Venus when she's in the sign of Taurus. Now, Uranus is also in the sign of Taurus, and on June 11th, Venus and Uranus are going to have an exact hit. They're going to conjunct each other at 16 degrees and 49 minutes, so you definitely want to check your chart and see where Venus is. Also see what you have at 16 degrees of Taurus. See where Taurus falls in your chart. Check your Venus, check Uranus. This is going to give you an idea of how this can manifest for you, or how you can feel it or not feel it at all. But the thing is, when you're dealing with Venus energy and Uranus, there again, Venus likes things to be sweet and simple and just, very direct and beautiful and peaceful and pleasant. And Uranus in Taurus is the disruptor. Uranus is the disruptor. And in the sign of Taurus, it's like, well, I don't really like that color, so I'm going to flip your world upside down and make it blue. And, again, silly little analogy, but you get the drift. Now, the thing is with Venus and Uranus, on the positive side, depending on how this works for you, this could be getting some really great information out of the blue, or a new relationship that comes in out of the blue. Like think lightning, when lightning strikes your heart or something like that, not literally. But that's Uranus. That's how Uranus can work. Uranus can work very positively. Now, on the shadow side to that, Uranus can actually also work very disruptively. So, when it comes to relationships, because let's be real, that's one of the main domains of Venus. When it comes to relationships, Venus in Taurus might be thinking everything's wonderful, and then Uranus in Taurus throws in the shock value in whatever area of your life or your chart that this conjunction happens. And you can get hit with some piece of information that you were not expecting that could really blind you and make things very difficult, or it can clear the path and move you forward and take you out of a rut. And that's a beautiful thing about Uranus. Uranus can take us out of a rut. And sometimes it's a rut we didn't even know we were in, right? Until something comes in and disrupts it. So anyway, that Venus-Uranus conjunction can actually be very beneficial. So I don't want to make it sound like it's going to be, disruptive and chaotic, but it certainly can be. And again, when we're dealing with Taurus, we're dealing with the earth, literally. So, earthquakes are a literal energy to Uranus, okay? Also to Taurus, because Taurus is the earth. Any weather-related functions can fall under this Uranian energy. Think volcanoes, earthquakes, flooding, storms. Hopefully not, but it could be of the emotional kind, right? It doesn't have to be literal, but it certainly can be. And so I just have to say it because that is Uranus. I have many, many stories of Uranus, which I will not get into here, but it's about a shift. No doubt about it. And the other thing about it, it could also be your money. And let's not forget what's going on the global scale with currency, okay? So, but this could also be personal for you. You could have a literal shakeup with your own money. Hey, you could also have a windfall and have money coming in. So don't take it negatively, but forewarned is forearmed. So definitely check out your chart to see where that Venus-Uranus is going to, I don't want to say the word strike, where it's going to hit, where it's going to fall for you. And again, it may be very minimal, or it could be something really big and monumental and wonderful. And then when we get to the 18th, I'm skipping over the new moon because I'm going to do that separate. When we get to the 18th, Venus is then going to come up into a square with Saturn, okay? So Venus, the planet of love and pleasure and beauty and all things wonderful, in her sign of Taurus, where she's chilling and she's, laying on the couch eating chocolate or whatever she's doing, it feels velvety and sweet there, okay? And then she comes up against Saturn in Aquarius by a square aspect. This is a harsh aspect. This again can show us blind spots within the Venus themes of life, which again, relationship, love, connection, and money. So you may have something revealed to you. Let's not forget Saturn's retrograde. So there might be something where we need to backtrack, get the right details, move things forward, or it could just be that exhausting hard stop energy where nothing comes of it, but you may just feel a little bit blocked. So even affection for you might feel blocked around that time. So just pay attention to that. If that does come up, if your fears and your doubts and your insecurities creep up and are, taking you down emotionally, just know that this too shall pass. Venus, while she's in Taurus, she's fighting for her right to be who she is right now. It's there, but she has to contend with Uranus and then Saturn. But then when we get to the 21st, she's going to line up nicely with Pluto. Venus will trine Pluto in Capricorn, and that's going to be a nice energy, a sweeter energy, smoother. It could smooth out any ruffles that have happened over the couple of weeks prior. And I will get into that more when I do the second half of June. But let me go to the new moon that's going to take place on June 14th. Now, this new moon is going to be in the sign of the truth, the sign of freedom, the sign of optimism and expansion, the sign of Sagittarius. Also the first lunation in Sagittarius that is not an eclipse, okay? So we're a little bit free from the eclipse energy. But let's remember, full moons pull everything up, okay? Full moons are very emotional. They're very enlightening. They bring in awareness. They heighten our intuition. They heighten our senses. They heighten physical things that are going on, literally, like surges, bloating, water. And this full moon is also a supermoon, which basically means it's closest to the earth, okay? So it's a supermoon, so that's going to pull all of that I just said. It's going to pull it in even stronger. It's going to pull it up even higher, okay? It's going to feel that much more intense, that much more emotional, that much more revealing, that much more illuminating. Furthering that, the ruler of this full moon is Jupiter, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion, right? Making things bigger. Now, let's not forget, Jupiter entered Aries on May 10th, okay? And Jupiter in Aries is a push and a burst of energy and fire. Mars is also in Aries. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of energy to this new moon. So, I'm sorry, I keep calling it a new moon. There's a lot of energy to this full moon. So, there's something here that's revealing, right? That's going to bring things up and out for us. And again, it's Sagittarius, which is all about justice and the truth. So, we will more than likely see a lot on the world stage, but more on the personal level. It's wise to be conscious with this full moon because it is going to feel very powerful and very motivating on a lot of levels, and it can definitely be very anxiety producing with a lot of nervous tension present. So while Mars is in Aries, Mars is giving some extra juice to Jupiter, and again, Jupiter rules this full moon, and in Sagittarius, Sagittarius is a fire sign. So this is a lot of energy, okay? Let me just pull up the chart and show you. All right, so here we've got this full moon, supermoon, June 14th, 7:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have this chart set for my location, so just ignore that. We're just going to focus on what's going on with the planets. So as always, when we have a full moon, it's when the sun and the moon are opposite each other exactly in the sky. So here we've got the sun at 23 degrees and 25 minutes of Gemini, opposite the moon at 23 degrees and 25 minutes of Sagittarius, and that gives us our full moon. Now, if you look up here at Neptune at 25 degrees and 23 minutes of Pisces, which is actually kind of funny because Neptune's at 25 degrees and 23 minutes of Pisces, and the full moon is at 23 degrees and 25 minutes of Sagittarius, so the numbers are flip-flopped. But anyway, square. Okay, this is a T-square. So Neptune is pulling in to this energy of Gemini and Sagittarius by way of a square aspect, a T-square. So what does this mean? Well, Gemini and Sagittarius are opposite signs, right, where the full moon is. Neptune is in a square to both Gemini and Sagittarius, which are the opposing signs, and that gives us our tense T-square aspect, where these three energies are vying for control. That's basically what this means. Now, the thing that's so significant about this is that Neptune in Pisces is very intuitive, it's very dreamy, it's very nebulous in certain ways, but it can also be very deceitful. It could also delude us. And so the question here to ask yourself is, where is this full moon happening in your chart, in your life, okay? Because you want to be sure that with everything going on around this full moon and all of the energy and all of the intensity, because there will be a lot, you're probably going to be getting a lot of psychic information, psychic downloads. But I caution you to ask yourself this question: is this the truth? Because again, Sagittarius is concerned with the truth, and Neptune in Pisces is concerned with, deluding us, and possibly it's not on purpose, and maybe there's no delusion going on, okay? But I just would say, because we're dealing with a very tense aspect and Neptune's pulling into this full moon so strongly with that watery, nebulous, foggy, and we're still in the shadow of Mercury retrograde, let's not forget that, it would just be wise to pay really close attention to what comes up for you and just make sure that you are seeing things as clearly as possible, especially if you are a mutable sign, which is Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo, or if you have any of your points and placements in any of those signs. Gemini, look, I'm getting all Neptunian as I'm talking about this. Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini. So especially if it's anywhere between 18 and 26 degrees of those signs, okay? So if that is true, especially for you, you want to be very conscious and very careful and very cautious with this Neptune energy, that it's not making things bigger than they need to be in the wrong way, and that you're not being deluded or deceived by others in your life, or maybe you're the one doing it to yourself. So it's important to just make sure that you're seeing things for how they really are. And hopefully, since this is a full supermoon, it will reveal some truths to you. But again, we want to watch that Neptune, okay? Now, at the same time, we've got this Venus-Uranus conjunction getting closer, okay? It's separating. We had the exact hit of the Venus-Uranus conjunction on the 11th of June, and now they're still in orb, but they're separating. So we're still under this Venus-Uranus conjunction, and the North Node's over here at 22 degrees in Taurus. So there's something here about whatever comes up for you around this time, very indicative of your destiny, of your future. So this, not to scare you, but these are some important times that we're under right now personally. Yes, of course, collectively, but I'm talking personally right now, where the hard truths are coming to the surface. And what do we do with them, if anything? Do we continue to go down the same path, go down the same road, or do we allow the energy to reroute us? Do we allow the truth to set us free, which is a huge component to this Sagittarius full moon? And that's one of the most positive sides to it. And with this Venus, Uranus, and North Node energy that's around, it's showing us the way. It's giving us some light on our path. Again, we have to make sure that we use this information wisely. Now, Saturn over here at 25 of Aquarius is trining the sun in Gemini, so that's a nice supportive aspect. So we have the help of Saturn here, but remember, Saturn is still retrograde at this time. So Saturn retrograde is going to be adding fuel to the fire here of showing us what we can and cannot do at this time. Now, the important thing, it's really important to mention this about Uranus, because Uranus's orbit is 84 years. So right where Uranus is right now, which is at 16 degrees, we have not seen this. None of us have seen this. It has not been at this degree in this sign in the past 84 years. And so again, if you have any fixed planets, points or placements, which is Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, I really urge you to look at your chart to see, because this could bring you some really strong truths, and it can really set you free and pull you into your future in the way you really are destined to go and to be. Now, will it feel unsettled? More than likely. But you definitely want to look at that, okay? So if you have anything 16, 17 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius in your chart, you're going to be feeling this. And this could be really, really liberating on the most positive side of it. And because this is a full moon so concerned with revelations and truth and sorting the wheat from the chaff, really important to look into your chart placements right now, especially if you have a lot of fixed energy. All right, so let's get a card for this full moon. Maybe I shouldn't have done a video because I'm still feeling a little bit off, but hopefully that was cohesive for you guys. My thoughts are very jumbled, but there is a lot going on. May was crazy. June is definitely more chill with the planets, but there's still a lot going on, as you can see and probably feel it. And again, depending upon your chart, you're really going to be feeling it. But let's get a card for the full moon. I'm not using tarot cards today. I'm using an oracle deck that I pulled out of the chambers over here that I didn't even know I had. You will not believe the card I just pulled. Truth. How funny. Oh, this whole deck. Anyway, of course we'll believe it, right? Because there's no coincidences. The truth. So this card is Sagittarius full moon energy in a nutshell. The truth. The truth shall set you free. The truth shall be revealed. You just may have to listen a little bit closer for it and pay attention to what is not being said, but what you feel. And again, always making sure, which is one of the more difficult things to do, is what I'm feeling. You know, am I paranoid? Because that's Neptune, paranoia. Am I paranoid? Is this really what's going on? Things still feel very, you know, foggy. So it's wise to take a step back and really sit with things, meditate. The answers will come. And besides, we do always know inside. We feel it. But of course, the challenge is to silence the mind so that we can truly go inward and really feel it accurately. And so I do really believe that this is a full moon of truth. Absolutely. I will definitely come back mid-month with another video on the second half of June, because we have a lot of nice things going on as we get towards the end of June, including the summer solstice on June 21st, which is one of my favorite times of the year. So there's going to be a lot of cool things to talk about as we get closer to the end of the month. And so I will come back for another video, hopefully at that time. Take really good care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Bye.